court sentences you to death by lethal injection.
You shall recommend the death penalty.
We therefore unanimously find that the sentence of death is signed by all 12 jurors, including the foreperson.
I hope that when you die, you will get the punishment you deserve from God.
I have repeatedly advised you, sir, that you will lose your right.
Excuse me for a second.
This is Shanita Latrice Cunningham and Erica Mae Butts, who are on trial for killing a child in South Carolina. The two reportedly beat 3-year-old Serenity Richardson to death when Butts was babysitting the child at her home in Somerville. Butts, who was Serenity's godmother, later confessed to repeatedly whipping the child with a belt when she urinated on the floor. Not only that, when Serenity became unconscious, they tried to revive her by putting bleach under her nose and putting her in an ice bath. Serenity suffered from more than 250 injuries to her body, including a lacerated liver, broken ribs, and a fractured skull. Such was the horrific nature of the abuse that prosecutors said the only uninjured part of Serenity's body were the soles of her feet. Both Cunningham and Butts were charged and convicted of child abuse murder. After their sentencing, Judge Diane Richardson said nothing had ever affected her as strongly as the photos of the little girl's battered body.
The severity of the blow to that child's leg, and to say that you did not recognize what had been done, to ignore what must have been the excruciating sounds that came from that child on a daily basis, is more than disconcerting to this court.
She then sentenced the two killers to life in prison without parole.
As such, the court finds it appropriate that each be sentenced to the State Department of Corrections for a period of life.
This is when things got crazy. After the verdict, the two defendants collapsed as screams of their family members echoed through the courtroom.
Eric, I love you. I love you, Eric. Eric, get up, baby. Get up, Eric. Eric, please get up.
Both women started hyperventilating and had to be restrained and wheeled out of court.
Slow down, slow down.
While the chaotic and bizarre collapse in court was truly shocking, what happens when a murder-for-hire plot goes wrong, like in the case of Diana Lovejoy, a YouTuber who conspired to murder her ex-husband in California?
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Diana Jean Lovejoy, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
Reports suggest that in 2016, Diana Lovejoy hired firearms instructor Weldon McDavid Jr. to assassinate her ex-husband, Greg Mulvihill. Lovejoy and Greg were reportedly going through a bitter divorce and custody battle at the time. McDavid allegedly lured Greg to a secluded area in Carlsbad by pretending to have information that would help him with the case against Lovejoy. But when Greg arrived at the scene, several shots were fired at him, and his friend called 911.
Hello, this is 911.
Yes. My friend has just been shot.
Do you know who shot him?
There's a guy lying down like a sniper.
A sniper? Did you see him at all?
Briefly, we saw the gun, and he shot at us like 6 or 7 times. My friend's getting lightheaded.
That's okay. I got paramedics en route, okay? I have officers en route. I got help out to you, okay?
When police arrived, they found Greg in his car, bleeding out. He was rushed to a nearby hospital, where he survived. Police learned that the call McDavid made to lure Greg came from a burner phone, which had been purchased by Lovejoy 2 weeks before the shooting. She also allegedly paid the assassin $2,000. Lovejoy was arrested and charged with attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. At her trial, Greg took the stand and described the chilling moments right before he was shot.
After the second time of shining the light on it and staring at it for a second, I realized I was looking at a barrel and a scope.
Eventually, the jury found Lovejoy guilty of all charges. This is when things got crazy.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Diana Jean Lovejoy, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
We're going to need to take a break. So you're down. And if we could have the jury go back.
Lovejoy collapsed out of shock and was sent to the hospital.
Lovejoy was unconscious for a time, then taken to a hospital for treatment.
A few months later, Lovejoy was back in court for her sentencing, where she made an emotional plea to the judge.
I still care about Greg, and as much as I did love him. I loved him a lot. And I really cared about him, and I still care about Greg.
Greg ultimately, Lovejoy was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison.
6 years to life.
And as for McDavid, he received a sentence of 50 years to life, while Diana Lovejoy collapsed in court after learning her fate. They were nothing compared to the utter mayhem caused by 35-year-old Granville Ritchie.
Today, a judge upheld a death sentence against Granville Ritchie. He's convicted of and murdering a 9-year-old girl.
Granville Ritchie is in court for multiple crimes, including kidnapping and murder. In May 2014, 9-year-old Felicia Williams went missing after her neighbor and godmother, Ebony Y, invited her friend Granville over to her house. The police were notified, and both Granville and Ebony were brought in for questioning.
Any idea where this girl may be?
I wish I know.
Can you tell me how you know this?
The house that is standing on, and if you look to the left, I used to stay in that house.
However, the next day, the body of the girl was washed up on Tampa Bay. The police intensified their investigation, and Ebony and Granville were brought in for questioning again.
That room, man. That little girl was gone.
Did he tell you to say that he wasn't there? To say that his mom was there?
Yeah.
Why lie?
I got scared.
Forensics and investigations pointed to Granville, and he was arrested. Now in court, the prosecution addresses the court.
And then he took Felicia's lifeless, nude body and he threw it like someone would throw a bag of garbage.
Followed by the state attorney.
Felicia Williams' life meant less to this man than his sexual desires to violate her.
The prosecution argued that all the evidence pointed to Granville and called on their main witness.
And it was like, what you lied about? I said I left her with Trevor, and he wanted me to go and get some weed for him. And then when I came back, she wasn't there.
They also revealed a 911 call from Granville's phone, which they stated must have come from the girl.
911.
Then, they rested their case.
Ultimately, there was a person in between him and that little girl that he wanted to get alone so that he could do these vile things to her. To do that, he had to get that person out of the way. And even though these are violent, brutal crimes that he committed on this little kid, he didn't use violence to get that obstacle out of the way. He used deception, he used lies, he used manipulation.
However, Granville's lawyers disagreed with the prosecution.
When Felicia Williams is missing, there's no signs of a struggle in that apartment. There's no DNA evidence left by Felicia Williams that you would expect. No hair, no skin, nothing.
They called on their own witness.
Do you see any evidence in the autopsy report and the photographs that would suggest to you that a sexual assault, sexual battery had taken place in this case?
No. They insisted that.
Granville Ritchie remains innocent.
Now it's time for the jury to give their verdict.
We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the charge, the defendants guilty of first-degree murder as charged.
But before the sentencing, the family members of the victim had the chance to address the court.
And he discarded her like she was nothing. I've waited 2,310 days for this day to come. And I regret today is that I cannot ask for his fate. And that would be for him to be hung, for him to feel what my daughter felt.
It was an emotional moment, and the judge wasn't left out.
My heart breaks for you as a mother. Absolutely breaks for you as a mother.
However, the most shocking statement was from the victim's father.
I forgive you, bro. That's how strong my God is. I come in and smile at you today with no harm or ill will towards you. You my brother. You made a mistake. But you got time. You got time to get right with God, bro. Because the journey you got ahead of you gonna need God.
Finally, it's time for Granville to learn his sentence.
Jury unanimously found that defendant should be sentenced to death. You will remain incarcerated until the date of your death is scheduled to occur. If you do ever pray to a higher power, either now or at some point before the date of your death is scheduled to occur, and you truly seek forgiveness and redemption for the sins and the crimes you have committed, I hope that you are granted it. And I do still see the humanity in you.
Granville showed no emotion and is currently awaiting his death in prison. Just when you thought you'd seen it all, another convict surpasses Granville's wild behavior.
County 911, where is your husband? Somebody I just want from. Hello?
Enter 21-year-old Jake Patterson, who is facing charges for kidnapping and murder. In October 2018, Jake kidnapped 13-year-old Jamie Lynn Claus from her family home and fatally shot her parents. Jake was obsessed with her and held her captive until January 10th, when she escaped. Following her escape, she reached out to kind strangers who called the police.
County 911.
Hi. I have a young lady at my house right now, and she says her name is Jamie Claus.
Okay, what's your address?
1-4. Jamie, do you know when he's going to come back?
Who's going to come back?
His name is Jake Patterson.
And she said, I am Jamie Claus.
Yes. She said, he killed my parents. I want to go home. Help me.
Ma'am, my deputy, she just wants you to lock.
Jake was later arrested. Now, in court, the judge explains his situation.
Understand that if the court felt justice required, I could impose 2 life sentences consecutively with a 40-year sentence consecutive.
Yes.
Knowing that, do you still choose to plead guilty? Yes. How do you plead to that charge?
Guilty.
Even in court, his obsession with Jamie didn't reduce.
As he was led away, Patterson turned and said, "Bye, Jamie."
Next, it was time for the victims to tell him how they felt.
This monster, Jamie won't have her mom and dad at her dance recitals.
Now, Jake addresses the court.
I would do, like, absolutely anything to take back what I did, you know? I would die.
Before I did this, I planned on taking multiple girls, killing multiple families. I wanted to treat them differently, play mind games with them. I also just wanted to scare people. I hated everyone, but no one in particular.
But before he learns his fate, the judge speaks directly to him.
I've been a lawyer for almost 40 years and a judge for the last 16 years, almost entirely in this county. And these crimes rank as the most heinous and dangerous that I have seen either here or anywhere else in the state of Wisconsin. Not only were you a danger to the Claus family, you are an extreme danger to the public in general. There is no doubt in my mind that you are one of the most dangerous men to ever walk on this planet.
Finally, he learns his fate.
Regarding the first-degree intentional homicide of James Claus, I sentence you to life imprisonment without the eligibility for release on extended supervision.
Just when you thought Jake couldn't sink any lower, their behavior in prison will leave you stunned.
Another inmate jumps towards Patterson, who backs up, and then throws a punch.
Fortunately, a prison guard intervened.
Small door pops open from the prison guard bubble, and a guard extends an orange-colored beanbag shotgun and fires a round, hitting the railing. The 2 men separate and then lay on the ground.
Jake is still serving his sentence in an outdated prison in New Mexico. While it was clear that Jake wasn't happy to spend the rest of his life behind bars, his reaction was similar to the case of Bradley Young.
Let's go. He's done.
He was in court on charges of home invasion and aggravated kidnapping. In November 2021, Bradley attacked and kidnapped 77-year-old Christine Schmidt. Now in court, the prosecution lists his crimes.
When it was starting to get dark, she started to have car trouble. She must have been so scared. When you have trouble, people stop, they pull over, and they help you. But instead of a random act of kindness, the defendant and his accomplice showed up. They showed up to commit an act of violence, an act of terror. She was kidnapped by the defendant, she was robbed by the defendant, and she was brutally and violently sexually.
However, Bradley insisted on defending himself.
Your Honor, I object. Grounds? The death has no relevance in this case.
You will see that today, here, and throughout this trial, there are major tales told. Tales that are tall.
He called his first witness, and the testimony got intense.
You stated you were subpoenaed for phone records, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. We just dealt with this.
I'm just letting the witness know where we're at, Your Honor.
He was here, he knows, so next question, sir.
Then he called his second witness.
Objection, Your Honor! I will sustain the objection, Mr.
There was no 911.
Objection, Your Honor! I'll ask the bailiff to have the jury return to the jury room and we'll address this.
Now it was time for his concluding statement.
I'm not a heinous, perverted creep. I do not go around robbing people. My two greatest friends are elderly people. One just happens to be 76 years old. She was my next door neighbor. Never. My best friend in the world, he's 62 years old. Just turned 62. My mama taught me better than this. She didn't teach me to go out and do these things, nor did I do them. I wouldn't care if I was a prosecutor or not. I wouldn't sit here and call the defendant a man. I'd call him a piece of Excuse my terminology, Your Honor. Sometimes evidence isn't evidence.
After listening to the arguments, the jury now gives their verdict.
Defendant Bradley Yawn, guilty of home invasion with a dangerous weapon.
But before he learns his fate, Bradley had some tricks up his sleeves.
Your Honor, I am my own attorney. I have some issues to take up with the court.
If you file a written motion, notify the state of those issues, and then we can schedule those for a hearing.
It seems like things don't get filed, Your Honor. The clerk just does not file them. That's one of my reasons. Leave it off you, dude.
Mr. Yawn?
Piece of shit.
Let's go.
He's done.
Eventually, Bradley was sentenced to 130 years in prison for his crimes. While Bradley's behavior raised eyebrows, it's nothing compared to the disturbing actions of Trevor Summers. Trevor Summers is facing charges for attempted murder and kidnapping. In March 2017, Trevor broke into the house of his ex-wife, Elisa Matthews, and held her hostage for hours. Eventually, a good Samaritan noticed her pleas for help and called the police.
Some chick just ran out of the dude's car. He just grabbed her and put her back in my car.
What's the address?
It's Walgreens and Fish Hawk. I don't know the address.
Representing himself in court, Trevor questions his wife.
Do you recall where you were sitting at the time I made the video?
I was hog-tied on my bed.
Is it true that we had sex?
After the several hours of being hog-tied, you untied me and had sex with me a second time.
Unintimidated, Alyssa told the court what really transpired.
I threatened you to have sex.
You broke into my home in the middle of the night when I was sleeping, attacked me and tied me up. I take that as, yes, you threatened me to have sex with you. Yes. Prior to having sex, you did push me, you did hold me down, you did tie me up, you did attack me, and you did break into my home when I was sleeping. You me.
Now it is the turn of the prosecutor to present their case. They began with Alyssa.
Things are where they're supposed to be. You can see that we packed, we left, and we had a plan to go to my house. Her accusation is that she was tied to go to my house.
Then the caller testified.
What did he do when he was running towards the female?
He caught up to her and grabbed her, kind of wrestled her back to the ground.
And finally, the video evidence was presented.
I have been holding her against her will since 20 after 11. Yeah. I did tie her up to keep her from contacting authorities and giving me enough time to get out of town. Some time to say bye to the kids and leave, as well as leaving her everything that I have, house, car, some funds to take care of the children.
Then they rested their case.
Law enforcement did not check to see if these directions even fit to a map.
Now it is time for Trevor to learn if his argument convinced the jury.
The defendant is guilty of attempted murder in the first degree.
Trevor was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. While this action may be seen as an effect of divorce, the same can't be said for the case of David and Louise Turpin. As a couple who were in court for the torture, kidnapping, and maltreatment of their dependents in California. In January 2018, one of the children called the police.
911 emergency, what are you reporting? I just ran away from home because I live in a family of 15 and my two little sisters right now are chained up.
Okay, how old are you?
I'm 17.
And how many of your siblings are tied up?
Two of my sisters, one of my brothers.
How are they tied up, with rope or with what?
With chains.
Following the call, she met up with an officer and provided more details of her situation.
Hi, what's going on?
I just ran away from home.
Okay.
I live in a family of 15.
Okay.
My two little sisters right now are chained up.
They're chained up?
Yes,
Where are they chained up at?
on their bed. Now, mother didn't chain them up just to be mean. They're chained up because they stole mother's food. I've never talked to anybody out there, so I've never been alone with a person, so this is very hard for me to talk.
Do your parents know you left your house?
No, they don't.
Do you take any medication?
What's medication?
Medication?
Yeah, what's medication?
Do you take pills? Do you take pills?
Oh, I
For-
don't think I've ever taken a pill before.
Okay. How did your sisters get like this?
Okay.
Your parents chained them up?
Yes.
Take a seat in the back of my car.
Okay.
Do you have any injuries?
What's injuries?
Are you hurt?
Oh, no, not right now.
What are your parents going to do when they find out you left?
They're gonna want to literally kill me.
What's the worst thing they've done to you?
They have choked me against the bed, and
Did you call the police?
I didn't have time to get a phone yet. This is the first chance I got to phone.
The officer called for backup and went with Jordan to investigate her claims.
Okay, do you mind if we come in and just take a look, make sure everybody's safe and everything's okay?
Okay, what kind of call did you get?
Well, we got a call that there was a young female walking around saying that she came from a house over here. We were able to find out that this was a house, and we just wanted to check and make sure everybody was okay.
Think she came from here?
That's what she said. We're gonna come.
However, what the officers saw shocked them. David and his wife Louise were promptly arrested. Now in court, they readily admitted to the crime.
Is it true that on or about you did in fact commit violation of Penal Code Section 237, subdivision B? Yes. Mrs. Sturgeon.
Now it's time for the children to tell the court what they went through.
My parents took my whole life from me. I saw my dad change my mom. They almost changed me, but I realized what was happening. I immediately did what I could to not become like that.
I love both of my parents so much. Although it may not have been the best way of raising us, I'm glad that they did, because it made me the person I am today. I just want to thank them for teaching me about God and faith. I hope that they never lose their faith.
It was an emotional moment, and Louise couldn't hold her tears. However, the children were not done.
I cannot describe in words what we went through growing up. Sometimes I still have nightmares of things that had happened, such as my siblings being chained up or getting beaten.
This time around, David couldn't help but react to the statement. It's finally time for the couple to address the court. An emotional David spoke first.
Thank God for all of my children. Each one of them is a blessing from God. My homeschooling and discipline have good intentions. I never intended for any harm to come to my children. I'm sorry if I've done anything to cause them harm.
Then Louise addressed the court.
Sorry for everything I've done to hurt my children. I want them to know that Mom and Dad are going to be okay. I also want them to know I believe God has a special plan for each of them.
Before they were sentenced, the judge expressed how he felt.
Are indeed a gift. They're a gift to their parents, they're a gift to their family, to their friends, and they're a gift to society.
Now they learn their fate.
Both defendants are sentenced to life with the possibility of parole with a minimum parole eligibility of 7 years.
David is serving his sentence in California State Prison. Courtroom and Louise is incarcerated in the Central California Women's Facility. David and Louise Turpin are prime examples of kidnappers acting crazily. Thank you for watching. The cases we've explored today show the unimaginable impact of crime on victims and their families. These stories remind us of the resilience of survivors and the importance of justice. Stay tuned for more, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on similar cases.